Hey guys, John here, and welcome back to the Synthmaster 3 tutorial course. Today we're taking a look at the Noise LFO. Now this LFO is quite interesting as it uses noise as its modulation source, and we have lots of controls that are particular to this type of LFO. Now let's first load one up with the gear icon down over here, so let's select this here, go to Add New, and then we're going to select Noise LFO. And again, for this demonstration, we're going to drag and drop noise to pitch, bring down the depth a little bit, and we're also going to change out the sawtooth to a sine wave. Now, there's a few controls that we covered in the last episode that are also shared with the regular LFO. So we're going to be skipping over those in this lesson. However, if you're interested about any of those features that we don't discuss, make sure to watch the previous LFO video. So now when we play some notes here, we can hear and we can also see how the oscillator is snapping to different pitches. Now, by default, this LFO is synced to our tempo at a half note, as we can see here on the left-hand side, and we can either select this menu to change it, or we can scroll on our mouse wheel. And we also have a speed knob down here if we want to adjust it a little bit further. And if we disable sync all the way here on the bottom, so the speed knob all the way to the left is going to be 0.01 hertz, and all the way here to the right is going to be 100. Now with our speed knob all the way to the top, if we look over here on the type of noise, we can switch through these and we can actually hear the different types of noise. So right here is going to be on white, and we're going to scroll through a couple of these here. So next up here, we have the noise volume. So if we bring down our speed a little bit, something like this here, and we start reducing the noise, we can see that we get less and less modulation. So next up here, we have a knob called bits. Now this is going to dial in the bit quantization depth, meaning that if we bring it all the way down, we're going to have less values for it to snap to. So for this demonstration, we're going to actually increase our pitch modulation here and maybe go for 1/16 and turn on sync and bring our speed back to normal. So we have something kind of like this here. Now, all these notes are pretty chaotic pretty much everywhere. However, as we start reducing the bit depth, we're going to have less values for these notes to quantize to. So all the way here on the left-hand side, we're really only hitting 3 here. And if we start to go up higher, now we have all these different values to lock into. And next up, we have the attack and the release knob. So let's bring down our speed here, maybe to something, maybe a quarter note, something like that. And maybe reduce our pitch as well, something like this here. Okay, so now we have the attack. So once we increase this here, we're going to see as the notes start to slide in, and we can see that reflected here as well. And we can do the same thing with the release. Now we can see that these lines here are all going to be linear, which is why this mode linear here is selected. However, if we select this here, we can go to exponential. And we can see that the attack and the release have different types of curvature to them. And then the last one here is going to be linear exponential. And here we notice that the attack is going to be linear, however, the release is going to have a curve to it. And finally, we have a knob called the external volume knob, which is going to be this guy right over here. Now we can use this to map to other controls such as macros, XY pads, envelopes, and so on. And for this example, we're going to select the mod wheel. So let's select this list here, go under MIDI, and then right here, we're going to select the mod wheel. Now for this example, let's bring down our attack and bring down our release, and also maybe reduce a little bit of the pitch, something kind of like that here. Now when the mod wheel is down, Let me bring bits back to normal. We don't really notice a change. However, once we start increasing this, because this is going to be on addition, it's going to be adding a value, so we're going to be getting more values here. We can also change this here on this menu if we click this to multiply. So basically, we're multiplying this value via the mod wheel. So if we go all the way to the bottom, we hear no modulation, and that's because this is multiplying this by 0, because the mod wheel is all the way down. As we can see, this is a 0 value, and 0 times anything is going to be 0, so no modulation. However, if we start increasing it back to 1, it's going to act how we would expect it to, because we're just multiplying it by 1, which is the same value. Now, this can be useful if we're scaling down values or something like that. We can slowly drag this value down to reduce the amount of modulation that we get, until we finally hit 0 with no modulation. So next up, we have greater. Now, for this example, let's make something that resembles Morse code. So from a fresh preset, we're going to change the oscillator from a sawtooth to a default triangle. And then also let's add that noise LFO. So click the gear icon, add new, and then we're going to go to noise LFO and drag and drop this again to the pitch and reduce our depth a little bit to something maybe around here should be okay. We're going to take this off sync and then bring our speed down to maybe something like 0.3-ish or so, something like that. Now we're going to select the mod wheel once more. So under MIDI, let's select mod wheel. And again, here on this plus, let's go to the option called greater. So now when we play a note with our mod wheel down, we essentially hear the bottom value, which is this one here. And all the way at the top is going to be the top value. Now, once we start going into the middle, we're kind of bouncing back and forth between these two different values. Now, the interesting part is where exactly we put this. So if we put this more towards the bottom, for the most part, we're going to get the lower note with a little bit of the high ones right up here. Now, if we do to the top, we're mostly going to get the high-pitched ones with a little bit of the bottom ones. So it's kind of, in a sense, to think of it like a ratio. In the middle, it's going to be about even. And we can also change this out to smaller, which is essentially the inverse. So all the way here at the bottom is going to be the high-pitched, and the top is going to be the low-pitched, and then anywhere in between is essentially what we had before. And once we got all that set up, all we would have to do is add a little bit of reverb here. And you got yourself a pretty cool patch. So overall, the Noise LFO is a lot of fun to use and can make some really, really cool stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something, and we'll see you in the next one.